Good morning, Lemonheads. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We are on a little bit early because we want to take you to Davos, Switzerland, where the president has just finished a speech, and it is apropos of what the thumbnail said, that he embarrasses the U.S. In front of world leaders or on the world stage. And so that is the president. Now he is taking questions, and his answers have been unbelievable. We need to do some fact checking on this, but anyways, we're going to watch the president in this interview in Davos, Switzerland, at the World Economic Forum, and he's being interviewed post his speech that happened just moments ago. Let's listen in.
Right around that certain building that we talk about, I always said it came from Wuhan. It did come from Wuhan. And they were body bags. We saw it by satellite. And they said, there are strange things happening in China. And so it began. And we ended up with the COVID, and the whole world suffered. We did a phenomenal job. I don't think we got the credit we deserved. We did something that Operation Warp Speed, which some people say was one of the greatest military feats ever. We did a great job. Used our military, used a lot of people. But sometimes you get hit with things, nothing you can do. You get hit with things like that unexpectedly. And we got through it. And when I left, the stock market was higher than it was previous to the COVID coming up. And I called it a great achievement. But things happen, bad things happen. The things that we can stop are wars if we're smart. That we can stop. Those are a matter of being intelligent and having intelligent people on the other side, because wars are the worst of all. Wars are worse than anything.
Okay, so let me just give you some context here. The questioner, the interviewer, asked him about the U.S. economy, saying that the economy is doing well so far. You know, it depends on if you're rich or not. And he started talking about his economy in his first administration until COVID came along, and he said until that we were going gangbusters, and he's insinuating that COVID was made up. He said, and then I heard a word called pandemic. But what he's failing to say and understand is that the reason that we did so poorly during COVID is because he handled it poorly. The reason the economy was bad during COVID is because he handled it poorly. He said it was fake. He told people not to get vaccines, and then he came up with the vaccine himself, and then he walked away from it. So now he's talking about wars, which has nothing to do with what the reporter was asking, or the interviewer was asking. Let's go.
We need a little luck. We don't want to get hit by something that nobody could have thought. Whoever thought we were going to hit by a pandemic? You know, when I heard the word pandemic, I said, oh, that's an ancient problem. World War I, they lost 100 million people. It actually ended World War I. A lot of people don't know. The Spanish flu in World War I ended the war because all the soldiers were sick. The soldiers were so sick on both sides.
I think most people know that. He said most people don't know. I mean,
from the Spanish flu, they were sick as dogs. They couldn't fight. So, you know, you don't know how that would have turned out. But so we do, I mean, subject to that, and I always have to put a caveat in for it, but we're poised to have the greatest growth of any large country, I think any country that there's been. When you look at what's happening in the United States, it's really amazing.
Thank you. One thing that maybe keeps you up at night, I know you don't sleep that much anyway, Mr. President, is the debt. The U.S. debt is high, is now the biggest expenditure on your budget. How to get out of that impasse?
Well, the big thing is growth. I mean, growth is the way. If we grow like this, we go from having at 37, 36, $37 trillion. We go from having high debt to low debt. But we also are cutting expenses, you know, the old-fashioned way. We have extraordinary growth. I think we're going to be growing our way out. I think we're going to be paying off debt. We're taking in tremendous money from tariffs fairly. And again, I'm using them judiciously. You know, Switzerland's a case study. I could have gotten much more. I could have asked for much more. But we're using them judiciously. But I think growth, most importantly, and then cutting costs. Now, if you take a look at Minnesota, $19 billion in fraud and other things. People going to airports, they came into the country, they don't have 10 cents, and they're leaving with hundreds of thousands of cash in their bags. When we get to that, like and our DOJ, Pam, and Todd, and all the people that work over there, and all of the people that work in here, I can tell you, Scott Bessent is working on that. It's a priority, right? You have your whole team. We're in there looking for where this money is coming from, how much it is. It could be more than $19 billion. Can you believe that? That's just one state. If we were able to cut out 50% of the fraud, 50%, and we should be able to do better than that, we would have a balanced budget without having to talk about even growth. So we have a lot of options, but we're working very hard on that. That's a big deal. It's not just the protests, the fake protests done by agitators and, professional insurrectionists. That's what they are. They're professional troublemakers. But we are looking very strong at the money too in Minnesota and other places.
I think, Mr. President, also the $500 billion invested in artificial intelligence and the frontier technologies last year also were driving growth exponentially in the U.S.
Well, AI has been a big factor. AI is massive. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg showed me a plant where he put it over a map of Manhattan, and it was basically the size of Manhattan. This is not, I said, you got to be kidding. It's a plant that was miles long, miles wide, very high. I don't think it was high like the Empire State Building, but it was high. And it literally covered most of the island of Manhattan. That's called a big plant. And, when I heard they're going to spend $50 billion building it, I said, what are they, if you spend $50 million, you can build a nice little shopping center. If you spend $500 million, you can build a good shopping center. But how do you spend $50 billion? When I looked at this thing, I said, you think you'll be able to do it for that? It's amazing when, some of the plants that I see, and I see them all, and again, so big as we're letting them build their own electric generation. This way we have no problem, and otherwise they'd be complaining. There'd be nobody able to be, we have an old grid system. And not only that, they're going to sell at a very cheap price the excess electricity that they create back into our grid. So that'll solve some problems for certain states that don't have enough electricity.
We also know that on the AI, there is fierce competition between the U.S. as the largest economy in the world, 27% of the global GDP and 5% of the global population, not doing that badly, and China. And we know that competition is very tough on AI. I know you're heading to a state visit to China in April. How do you see the U.S.-China relationship moving forward? Are you able to combine this tough competition with also collaboration?
So I've always had a very good relationship with President Xi and with President Putin. Talk about, the larger powers. But I've always had a very good relationship with President Xi of China. He's an incredible man. What he's done is amazing. He's highly respected by everybody. And I do now. I mean, now I have good. It was very severely interrupted by COVID. I used to call it the China virus, but he said, do you think you could use a different name? And I decided to do that because why should we have a problem over that? But I would do that, and they were.
You're a true diplomat, huh?
I became a diplomat for the first time. Well, who taught me that? Marco Rubio. He said, let me teach you about diplomacy. Hey, any guy that gets approved by 100% of the votes, think of it, he got liberal Democrats and radical right Republicans to approve him. He's the only one. The next one was lost 45 votes, right? But he got all 100 votes voting for him. And at first I wasn't happy about it. I said, wait a minute, I don't like that. And now it turns out that the Democrats probably wish they didn't do that. And Marco has been fantastic. Marco, stand up, please. You have done a great job as Secretary of State. He's going to go down as the best Secretary of State. And Scott, and we have Susie, who's the first female Chief of Staff, and she's the best Chief of Staff, too. And I see Howard Lutnick, who I know spoke, and Howard's fantastic. Some of the deals we're doing are great. And I want to pay particular attention because we have Chris. And Chris, you got up and spoke, I think. He's the #1 oil man in the world, because I was going to put Doug Burgum, who's fantastic. I don't know if Doug's here. Is Doug here? Doug Burgum is fantastic.
This is becoming
there's one man better than me.
A little bit. This is becoming like the cabinet meeting where they sit around and glaze him and he's pointing out all the people united. No one ever does this on the world stage. Stick to the subject. This is very serious. He's rambling and just being honest. He is not answering the questions. He went from, are you concerned about the economy and the growth, to COVID, and then during the speech he talked about windmills. So what is going on with his cognitive abilities? Like, this is crazy. And he stood there looking like, is this over the podium? Like, you know, I'm just saying, as president of the United States, I would prefer someone who is at least acts the part. Keep going.
Back to Greenland and Ukraine.
Greenland now.
What kind of deal in the end do you see between the U.S. And Denmark? Because, you know, I guess you see it now as a negotiation going on, or?
Well, it's costing Denmark hundreds of millions a year to run it. And Denmark's a small country and wonderful people. But, you know, it's very expensive. It's a very big piece of ice. And it's very important. I mean, I don't want to repeat the speech, but it's very important that we use that for national and international security. That can create a power that will make it impossible for the bad guys to do anything against the perceived good ones. And it's a great block for Europe. Just like, you know, Denmark was supposed to spend hundreds of millions of dollars. They didn't spend the money. They didn't spend anything, almost. And we'll see what happens. I just say this. NATO has treated the United States of America very unfairly. We never asked for anything. We never got anything. We actually took care of the needs of NATO for years and years, which I felt was always unfair. So I got NATO to pay because they're rich countries. But I think it's time that NATO step up. We're helping them with Ukraine. Without us, I think Putin would have gone all the way. I think we have it. I think there could have been a World War III, if you want to know the truth. If Kamala was elected, or Joe, any one of those, you know, those thinkers, I think you could have ended up in World War III. And I will say Steve Witkoff has been dealing incredibly with, but we're not going to have World War III. We want to get it stopped, but we're not going to have World War III. I think if I wasn't elected, I think that could have evolved into World War III. It was a very, very bad situation, and it still is, but it's not that kind of bad. It's bad because so many young people are being killed.
How close do you think there is on an agreement on Ukraine?
Okay, so let me just
speaking with Steve Witkoff.
He said if Biden and Harris had been elected, well, they were in office for one term, and there was no World War III, and our allies respected us, and they didn't kowtow to Vladimir Putin the way that Trump does. And so, you know, this whole idea about wars and him stopping wars and it would be World War III, this is all bluster and it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit.
With Ukraine, Russia, there's tremendous hatred between President Zelensky and President Putin. That's not good. That's not good for settlements. We know from dealing, there's abnormal hatred. With that being said, I think Russia wants to make a deal. I think Ukraine wants to make a deal. And we're going to try getting a deal done. We're getting, I think, Steve, I think I can say that we're reasonably close. But what happens is oftentimes we'll have a deal with Russia. Russia's set, and President Zelensky will not do it. You saw that when he was in the Oval Office. I was not happy. And then we'll have President Zelensky wants to make a deal, and Putin doesn't want to make the deal. It's a very difficult balance.
That's obvious.
And
that's obvious that they don't want to. It's obvious that they want to make a deal, but it's just that Vladimir Putin wants everything. He wants to annex Ukraine. He wants to Ukraine to become part of Russia. So yeah, that's his negotiation. And Zelensky's negotiation is like, no, that can't happen. And so would they like to make a deal? Yes. So what he's saying makes no sense. Of course they would like to make a deal. And of course they're at odds and they're nowhere near a deal. But I just want to say, he says that all the time. I think we can say we're really close, we're going to do it. He's been saying that since he got in office. He said he would stop the war on day one when he got in office. He's been there for 366 days. There's still a war in Ukraine and Russia.
also
Keep going.
complimented you on the Gaza deal. I think there will be a signing tomorrow. Of course, there are different views on this, but how important do you think this signing is on the board of peace? And do you think this is going to sustain? Do you think we now will see Gaza reconstructed and the billions of US dollars invested?
I do. I mean, I think we have peace in the Middle East. There are some little situations like Hamas, and Hamas has agreed to give up their weapons. Now, you know, they were born with a weapon in their hand, so it's not easy to do. When they were born with a rifle in their hand. It's not an easy thing for them, but that's what they agreed to. They've got to do it. And we're going to know, Jared, over the next 2 or 3 days, certainly over the next 3 weeks, whether or not they're going to do it. If they don't do it, they'll be blown away very quickly. They'll be blown away. You know, we have 59 countries that are part of that whole peace deal. And some of those countries aren't even they're near the Middle East, but they're not in the Middle East traditionally. And they want to come in and take out Hamas. They want to come in. They want to do whatever they can. There's a problem with Hezbollah in Lebanon, and we'll see what happens there, but that's a problem. But there are these little flames, but there's peace in the Middle East. Now, had we not gone in and knocked out with those big, beautiful, we just ordered 25 brand new ones, the latest and the greatest, the B-2 bomber. Think of them, they went in there at 2 o'clock in the morning with no moon, no light, no nothing, and every single one of those massive bombs hit its target, 100,000-pound bombs hit its target, every one of them. And then on top of it, from a submarine 300 miles away, we hit the sites with Tomahawks, which is an unbelievable weapon. So, you know, we did our job. If we didn't do that, you would have never had peace in the Middle East. And the countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar could never have, and others could never have signed anything.
There is no peace in the Middle East. Thank you very much, Jen Marsh. You're just saying there's no peace in the Middle East. They're still fighting. There's still skirmishes and fighting happening between Gaza and Israel.
And it was a total obliteration.
And there and other countries and factions in the Middle East. So he's lying there like there's peace there. There's no peace. And this whole peace agreement that he said happened never happened, because the moment that they signed it or they had the deal, within hours, they were fighting again, lobbing rockets over into Gaza. It's crazy.
They were afraid. We had a bully. The bully was Iran, the bully of the Middle East. They used to call it for years. They were the bully of the Middle East. They're not the bully of the Middle East anymore.
Mr. President, I know you even had to change plane last night, so I guess you didn't have much sleep, but I think your
Air Force One had to
but
turn
your
around
energy is still there. I know you have several bilateral meetings. I know you're also hosting a reception. So thank you so much for coming back to Davos. Thank you so much. It's highly appreciated.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Well, that was a lot and very interesting and embarrassing. This man is just not a diplomat, and everything is about him. It's embarrassing to me as an American, and because everything is about him, how we want to own the world, insulting our allies. Our allies are done with it. One of them said, "F you, Mr. President." You saw Emmanuel Macron yesterday and Mark Carney saying that we would prefer someone that has a little bit of respect or a lot of respect, some dignity, that believes in science, respect, and on and on. None of that happens with Donald Trump. It's just not part of his DNA. Donald Trump can barely form a sentence. And then when he gets there, he wants to, you know, people... A world leader calling out their cabinet about if Keir Starmer got up there or Mark Carney or Macron or anyone and they started talking about members of their cabinet, people would say, what the hell, what are you doing? This is Davos. This is a summit. This is not the United States. This is not, this is not the Celebrity Apprentice boardroom. This is not the East room in the White House. This is not the Oval Office where they sit around and glaze you all day, or you glaze each other and you pat each other on the back. It's just really embarrassing. I don't know any other way to put it. And I'm going to show you, especially now, and he's talking about, you know, windmills and all that. But as he's doing that, because of because he's so unhinged and his the erratic nature of his personality and just who he is, this is what's happening. Put up the breaking news about what's happening with the EU, which is the European Union, just delayed its vote on ratifying the U.S. trade agreement. Delayed. Because they don't know what is going to happen. He keeps insulting our allies. He keeps saying that Russia and China are not the problem, that the problem is NATO. And the reason that he thinks NATO is a problem is because he can't control NATO and he wants to control NATO. These are allies that we have had and an agreement that has been in place for decades and decades. And he wants to break with the norms. He always attacks institutions. He always attacks norms. And look at what is happening here in the United States. And if he thinks he can get away with it in the United States, which it appears that he's doing, then he thinks that he can get away with it on the world stage. He thinks that he can get away with it with our allies or wherever he goes, just in the world, that he can annex Greenland if he wanted to. Now, I don't know. I don't believe that the United States, his interpretation of what happened with Greenland, I don't believe that to be true. The United States offered to buy Greenland from Denmark for $100 million. This is in 1946. It's the equivalent now of $1.6 billion. That was in 2024. Denmark firmly rejected the offer as the island was seen as an integral part of the Danish kingdom, important to its history and natural identity. And then in 1951, Denmark and the United States signed the Greenland Defense Agreement, which allowed the United States to keep its military bases in Greenland and to establish new bases or defense areas. New bases or defense areas in Denmark, if Denmark agreed, and if deemed necessary by NATO. This was in 1951. The U.S. military could freely use and move between these defense areas, but was not to infringe upon Danish sovereignty in Greenland. The United States expanded its air base between 1951 and 1953 as part of a unified NATO defense strategy. And so we keep adding more assets because they're allowing us to. But Donald Trump just wants to bully and own. And reportedly, allegedly, he wants to do this not for the reasons he's saying, but because he wants his face, his big giant mug on Mount Rushmore. Because a surefire way, the one way that he believes guarantees that is to expand the land ownership of the United States. And that would be acquiring Greenland. And that's where we are. And we're going to show you some of Donald Trump's more embarrassing moments in the speech that he gave just before this interview. First, a word from our sponsors. The Don Lemon Show is brought to you by the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Now, I've said this before, and I'll keep saying it. Equality under the law only works when the government stays neutral. The First Amendment wasn't written to protect one religion. It was written to protect all of us. Right now, that promise is under threat from Christian nationalists who believe that their beliefs should control everyone else's lives. The Freedom from Religion Foundation is pushing back, defending students, families, and communities from religious coercion and government favoritism. If you believe freedom means freedom for everyone, join them. Here's what you do. You go to ffrf.us/New Year, or you text Don to 511-511. Again, that is ffrf.us/New Year, or text Don to 511-511. Text fees may apply. This episode of The Don Lemon Show is brought to you by Graza. You know I love cooking for friends, and lately what's taken my food to a whole nother level is Graza. Graza is my olive oil of choice. It's fresh, it's flavorful, extra virgin olive oil at an everyday price. They pick, press, and bottle their olives in the same season, and you can actually see the harvest date right on the bottle. So they've got two oils that I always keep on hand. One is Sizzle for everyday cooking, roasting, sauteing, whatever you're making, and Drizzle, which is a bold finishing oil that's perfect for salads, breads, or even a little splash over ice cream. So you can taste the difference. And honestly, they look great on the counter too. You can get 20% off of your first order at graza.co with the code LEMON, I recommend the duo sizzle and drizzle together. So that's graza.co and use the code LEMON. Thank you to our sponsors. Okay, so let's get to it. This is Donald Trump on the world stage, embarrassing the United States and us and himself on the world stage. Okay, so we talked about Greenland. Why don't we stay at Greenland? Because again, the I alone can do this. I alone can fix this. President, that's what he said his first time as he was staring up at the sun outside of the White House. He's saying, as it relates to Greenland, which is not true, NATO can't defend Greenland. Only I can. Watch this.
I have tremendous respect for both the people of Greenland and the people of Denmark. Tremendous respect. But every NATO ally has an obligation to be able to defend their own territory. And the fact is, no nation or group of nations is in any position to be able to secure Greenland other than the United States. We're a great power, much greater than people even understand. I think they found that out 2 weeks ago in Venezuela. We saw this in World War II, when Denmark fell to Germany after just 6 hours of fighting and was totally unable to defend either itself or Greenland. So the United States was then compelled, we did it, we felt an obligation to do it, to send our own forces to hold the Greenland territory. And hold it we did, at great cost and expense. They didn't have a chance of getting on it, and they tried. Denmark knows that.
And so Denmark knows that. The fact that that's not true, because if someone attacks them, then they're obligated to defend Greenland. And he's saying NATO can't do it. That's not true. Article 5 makes sure that they do it. So Donald Trump is full of BS as it relates to that. And of course, I mean, are you surprised that Donald Trump lies about it? Again, always think about what is the ulterior motive here? What is the hidden thing? Why is he doing this? What is the shiny object that he's putting in front of your face so that he can do something else? Sleight of hand behind your back. Okay, but he is saying he's not stopping. He is going to seek negotiations, continue to seek negotiations to acquire Greenland. Watch.
In 2019, Denmark said that they would spend over $200 million to strengthen Greenland's defenses. But as you know, they spent less than 1% of that amount. 1%. There's no sign of Denmark there. And I say that with great respect for Denmark, whose people I love, whose leaders are very good. It's the United States alone that can protect this giant mass of land, this giant piece of ice, develop it and improve it and make it so that it's good for Europe and safe for Europe and good for us. And that's the reason I'm seeking immediate negotiations to once again discuss the acquisition of Greenland by the United States, just as we have acquired many other territories throughout our history, as many of the European nations have. They've acquired, there's nothing wrong with it. Many of them, some went in reverse, actually, if you look. Some had great, vast wealth, great, vast lands all over the world. They went in reverse. They stuck back where they started. That happens too. But some grow. But this would not be a threat to NATO. This would greatly enhance the security of the entire alliance, the NATO alliance, the United.
So the only person who sees it that way is him. And I think NATO pretty much, these people pretty much know what they're doing, because most of these people have been in the political game as longer than you have, Donald Trump. And they are smarter, obviously more intelligent, but they're smarter than you. They know diplomacy, they know foreign affairs better than you do. And he thought he knew better than the generals. Remember that. But none of what he's saying, what he is saying makes sense, nor is it true. He just keeps saying it because he wants it to be true. I hate to say that, but that's him with every single thing that he does. And he says, if we give Greenland back, we don't own Greenland, that we were stupid. Watch.
And then after the war, which we won, We won it big. Without us, right now, you'd all be speaking German and a little Japanese, perhaps. After the war, we gave Greenland back to Denmark.
Pause.
How
please.
stupid were we?
How insulting to say that you'd be speaking German or whatever after the war to the people who are sitting in that room who are leaders. I sit there here and I watch and I just do this and I imagine the people in the room, or maybe they're just used to him and they laugh at him and think it's a joke, because you did hear laughter there. I don't know if it was members of the Trump administration who were there, the Trump delegation who were there in the audience who were laughing, or people were just sort of uncomfortably laughing out of embarrassment. I'm sure they're happy that it's not their leader that's standing up doing that. So unbelievable. Okay. And he said, we gave it back. Again, I don't think that Donald Trump has his facts as it relates to giving Greenland back and all of that. Because according to what the information that I have, and he's talking about the Cold War, the United States offered to buy Greenland from Denmark for $100 million in 1946. The equivalent of the U.S. Is $1.6 billion in 2024. Denmark firmly rejected the offer, as the island was seen as an integral part of the Danish kingdom, important to its history and national identity. So I don't know what he's talking about. Now, before the 1940s, there's an interesting relationship between Greenland and other countries, and those countries that would become NATO. But Donald Trump's, I guess, explanation of it does not make sense. Here's Donald Trump again, more on Greenland, and then we're going to move on. He's saying we pay 100% of NATO and we want Greenland. Therefore, saying because we are one of the biggest countries in the world, we pay a lot, we pay more. We are also one of the richest countries in the world. We have more resources. And it's instead of understanding that and keeping the world safe, he's like, I want everybody to pay equal, blah, 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 blah. Okay, fine. But he says we pay 100% of NATO and we want Greenland. Therefore, we should have it just because we want it and we pay more. Here it is.
Them for so many years. We've never gotten anything, except we pay for NATO. And we paid for many years until I came along. We paid for, in my opinion, 100% of NATO because they weren't paying their bills. And all we're asking for is to get Greenland, including right title and ownership, because you need the ownership to defend it. You can't defend it on a lease. Number one, legally it's not defensible that way, totally. And number two, psychologically, who the hell wants to defend a license agreement or a lease?
Very telling, because Donald stays in the real estate business, and you sort of got an inside, he said the quiet part out loud about how he handles business and how, who wants to defend that, a license or a lease agreement. There are plenty of lease agreements in the business that you're in that you supposedly made your wealth from, and you did not abide by those leases. Are you saying that the people who are leasing your apartments or leasing your buildings or the land from your buildings, that they can't abide, that they should just keep it and take it? This man is out of his gourd. He said something before that I can't remember exactly what he said that I want to respond to, but I digress. Donald Trump is much more, he is unhinged, and there's much more in this speech. But first, I want to get a word in from our sponsors, and we're back in just 2 minutes. Support for the show comes from Shopify. Now, when I started the Don Lemon Show, I had to figure out everything: branding, filming, merch, logistics, all of it, everything, everywhere, all at once. It was overwhelming. That's why tools that simplify your life matter. For millions of businesses, that tool is Shopify. Shopify powers millions of brands worldwide and about 10% of all U.S. e-commerce. And yes, we use Shopify for the Don Lemon Show merch that you so eagerly wanted. So thank you for that. You don't need to know how to design a website. Shopify has clean, ready-to-go templates. Their built-in AI helps with product descriptions, images, and even discount codes. They also help you find customers with easy email and social campaigns and handle everything from inventory to shipping to returns. So if you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Start your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/lemon. That's shopify.com/lemon. This episode of The Don Lemon Show is sponsored by BetterHelp. A new year doesn't require a new you. Sometimes it just means a less burdened you. Therapy helps you sort through what's weighing you down, relationships, stress, old habits, and it gives you a clear, unbiased space to think things through. Now, I've learned that letting go of what you carry unnecessarily can change everything. BetterHelp makes therapy accessible. Their therapists are fully licensed, carefully vetted, and matched to you through a quick questionnaire. And if it's not the right fit, you can switch at any time. With over 30,000 therapists and more than 5 million people served, it's support that you can trust. Their sessions average a 4.9 out of 5 rating. So you can get 10% off of your first month at betterhelp.com/donlemon. That's better, HELP.com/donlemon. Thank you so much to our sponsors. Now, when I talk to you about, I like to give evidence. When I talk to you about what's happening with Donald Trump's cognitive ability, I just want to make sure that to give you some evidence about it. One thing is, like, he says, NATO used to call me daddy, which was like, okay, why is he saying that? Is it funny? I don't know. And then I'm going to play him getting confused about about the country he's talking about. Here it is. First, NATO used to call me daddy.
Europe, I'm helping NATO, and I've until the last few days when I told them about Iceland, they loved me. They called me daddy, right? Last time. Very smart man said, he's our daddy. He's running it. I was like running it. I went from running it to being a terrible human being.
If Donald Trump thinks that members of NATO loved him, he is really he's out of his gourd. He's delusional. Because members of NATO have never loved Donald Trump. They're not laughing with you, Donald Trump. They are laughing at you. The members of NATO do not like you at all. Delusional. They used to like me. They used to call me daddy. But this is him. And so I just want to show you just how unhinged he is. Or, talking about cognitive abilities. Remember, he put so much stock in that when he was talking about Joe Biden. This is him confusing Greenland with Iceland multiple times.
Decades. But the problem with NATO is that we'll be there for them 100%. But I'm not sure that they'd be there for us. If we gave them the call, gentlemen, we are being attacked. We're under attack by such and such a nation. I know them all very well. I'm not sure that they'd be there. I know we'd be there for them. I don't know that they'd be there for us. So with all of the money we expend, with all of the blood, sweat, and tears, I don't know that they'd be there for us. They're not there for us on Iceland, that I can tell you. I mean, our stock market took the first dip yesterday because of Iceland. So Iceland's already cost us a lot of money. But that dip is peanuts compared to what it's gone up. And we have an unbelievable future in that.
Okay. Trump is, and I was just like, is he talking about? What's he talking about? And so it's not just me, because the Wall Street Journal is reporting it. The NBC News is reporting it. And others are reporting it as well. Trump appears to confuse Iceland and Greenland. Anybody writing a book about that? About Iceland and Greenland and confusing? Now, let me just show you what is happening also while this is all going on. You saw what the EU is saying. They postponed a vote, right? The EU is postponing a vote, delayed its vote on ratifying the U.S. trade agreement. And put that up, Andy. Delayed it on ratifying the U.S. trade agreement. And make sure we get that. Okay, so that happened. And then now what you have happening, as he is touting the United States, saying that we have the hottest country in the world, Germany is now rejecting an invitation to Trump's board of peace. Germany is now rejecting an invitation to Donald Trump's board of peace. They don't want to have anything to do with it and him. And I mean, and that means us as well. Embarrassing. Also, just to give you context of what's going on, this is what one congressman is saying. Steve Scalise is saying the American people appreciate Trump's presidency. Trump is less popular than George W. Bush after Katrina. The American people appreciate Trump's presidency. Less popular than George W. Bush after Katrina. Do you guys remember after Katrina? How unpopular George W. Bush was for doing the flyby over. Hell of a job, Brownie. For Mike Brown, who was head of FEMA. The entire world, as you say, Madeleine Wright, knows he's in mental decline, but the entire world is fed up with his antics and his bullshit. And now our allies are saying enough is enough with this man. The question is when is America going to say enough is enough with Donald Trump? Is America ever going to say that? When are we going to get tired and fed up with the BS and say, I'm mad as hell, not going to take it anymore? And not allow to be a country of minority rule where you have basically 30-some%, not of the population, but just of the electorate who are making the rules and the laws of this country that most people don't want. Most people don't want federal agents out on the streets harassing people and picking them up without due process. Most people in this country want a woman to have a right to choose. Most people in this country want a living wage. They want the minimum wage to be raised. Most people in this country want health care, affordable health care. Most of them want universal health care. And most of them like the Affordable Care Act and Obamacare. But if you listen to Donald Trump, they don't. Because he's only looking out for the MAGA faithful loyalists, the folks in the red states who voted for him. Look at what he's doing in blue states. Look at what he's doing in Minneapolis right now. Look at what he's doing in California right now. Look at the way he talks about blue states and the people who didn't vote for him. He's not the president of all Americans. He's just the president of the people who support him. So when are we going to say, enough already? We need to get this tyrant out. And I am speaking to, yes, us, because you have to be willing to sacrifice something, whether it is supporting an organization, whether it is going to the streets, whether if it is like me, documenting it, talking about it, exposing the truth, listening to what people have to say about it, challenging them when they have their facts wrong, offering them facts when they are speaking falsities. That's what we all have to do. And I believe the media has to stand up and stop doing the both sides thing and putting people on their platforms who are on the platforms just to lie. People need the truth now. We need a shared sense of reality. And if you're looking at Donald Trump on that stage today, he epitomizes someone who is delusional and what we don't want America to be. I mean, look, whether you liked them or not, whether Republican or Democratic president, Roosevelt, Kennedy, Ford, Johnson, Obama, Reagan, people respected us. They're like, oh, look, they're diplomatic. They can form sentences. They don't just talk about themselves. They aren't megalomaniacs. They aren't narcissists. They actually care about the American people. You may not agree with their policies, but at the end of the day, I do believe that George W. Bush and George H.W. Bush cared about the American people. I know that Bill Clinton did. He cared about the American people. People did not, liberals became really upset with Bill Clinton because they thought he was too centrist, especially after his first term, when he was reelected, he had to really pivot in order to make it work, in order to work with the other side. But that's a whole nother, those days are gone. That Republican Party does not exist anymore. And look at Barack Obama. You can go all over the world, you're going to see a Barack Obama statue. And I know that gets Donald Trump. But Barack Obama is beloved the world over because he was such a classy, magnanimous president. Donald Trump has neither class nor magnanimity. He has none of it. He doesn't understand it. It's not in his DNA. So we have to step up because it's our country, or we're going to get pushed off the world stage. And then it will become a real dictatorship. We'll be isolated like North Korea, like China, like Russia. We will be America first, will be America alone if we continue on with this bullshit. The midterms cannot come fast enough. And I pray to God that we actually are able to have a midterm here in the United States, that we're actually able to have a free and fair election. Because if you look at what's happening on the streets every single day, Donald Trump doesn't care, and people are being bullied and beaten. And citizens are being caught up in it. You want some proof of it? Andy, can you please get me the police officers in Minneapolis, as they are talking about in Minnesota, who are talking about what is happening even to their own officers on the streets? I just want to give you a reality check right now about all the things that you're seeing, all the distractions, all the, let's do this, let's investigate this, let's do this, let's come out and stand with all the pictures, of the people and say, look at this criminal and look at that, whatever, without giving any proof of it, of who they are, or if they even have criminal records, without telling people how many people have criminal records, lying to people, saying they're only picking up the worst of the worst and people who are bad. And then for me to go to Minnesota, and even here on the streets of New York, to hear people saying, well, Don, they're only picking up the worst of the worst. This is Joe Biden's fault. And we should, it's like, you're delusional if you believe that. It is not true. That's not what the facts show. Now, the Republican Party is supposed to be the party of back the blue. We believe in police officers, right? The police officers, law enforcement. That's what they say. Obey law enforcement out there, meaning the members of the military or the federal agents who are out on the streets. Obey, comply, comply. Now, these are they are in the very same profession. They are in Minnesota, in the Minneapolis area. And this is what these officers are saying is happening. This is the truth. Listen, turn up the volume.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mark Ruley, Police Chief of the City of Brooklyn Park. Behind me is a bunch of amazing police chiefs that are here in support of a very short but very important message that we want to share with you. What you won't hear from any of us today is rhetoric of abolish ICE or that there shouldn't be immigration enforcement. The truth is, immigration enforcement is necessary for our national security and for local security. But how it's done is extremely important. In fact, we have a long history of working exceptionally well with our federal partners, including ICE agents, and we have seen the best of them perform their job extremely well in the past. With that said, recently, as the last 2 weeks, we, as law enforcement community, have been receiving endless complaints about civil rights violations in our streets from U.S. citizens. What we're hearing is they're being stopped in traffic stops or on the street with no cause and being forced to demand paperwork to determine if they are here legally. As this went on over the past 2 weeks, we started hearing from our police officers the same complaints as they fell victim to this while off duty. Every one of these individuals is a person of color who has had this happen to them. In Brooklyn Park, one particular officer that shared her story with me was stopped as she passed ICE going down the roadway. When they boxed her in, they demanded her paperwork, of which she's a U.S. citizen and clearly would not have any paperwork. When she became concerned about the rhetoric and the way she was being treated, she pulled out her phone in an attempt to record the incident. The phone was knocked out of her hands, prevented her from recording it. The officer had their guns drawn during this interaction. And after the officer became so concerned, they were forced to identify themselves as a Brooklyn Park police officer in hopes of slowing the incident and de-escalating the incident down. The agents then immediately left after hearing this, making no other comments, no other apologies, just got in their vehicles and left. I wish I could tell you that this was an isolated incident. In fact, many of the chiefs standing behind me have similar incidents with their off-duty officers. This isn't just important because it happened to off-duty police officers, but what it did do is we know that our officers know what the Constitution is, they know what right and wrong is, and they know when people are being targeted, and that's what they were. If it is happening to our officers, it pains me to think of how many of our community members are falling victim to this every day. It has to stop.
It has to stop. And that is a member of law enforcement saying that it's happening to his off-duty officers. Why would that man lie about that? Why would those officers lie about that? They're not lying. They're telling the truth. So if you're out there believing that it's just the worst of the worst, or, they're just doing it to people who have criminal records, or they're just doing it to people who are here or undocumented. It's not true. They're doing it to American citizens. I've been telling you that since I went to Chicago, and even before I witnessed it for myself, just from looking at the facts. This is real. They're abusing people on the streets. They're not abiding by the Constitution. They're not abiding by due process. And I hear people all the time say, due process, what does that mean if you're illegal? It doesn't matter. If you're illegal or legal or whatever it is, that's not what we do here in the United States. We have a Constitution. We have a Constitution. I don't know where my Constitution is. Maybe it's in my briefcase. But we have a Constitution. And it tells you explicitly what we're supposed to do. It gives us the rules of the road in articles, in amendments. The First and Fourth Amendment tell you explicitly how we're supposed to conduct ourselves and how we're supposed to treat others. But they're not abiding by that. So Donald Trump, Kristi Noem, Pam Bondi, and all of the people who are involved in this, Kash Patel, all of you, have you no shame? Don't you have a backbone? Don't you have a conscience? Or is your heart just filled with ideology? Instead of blood flowing through your heart, is it just ideology? Is it just Republican talking points? Or is it just about your career? Or is it just about Kristi Noem appearing on a horse or whatever it is in a commercial in a cowboy hat with tons of makeup and her hair all done up? Is that what it's about for you? For all of you, for every single one of you? Don't you have don't you understand that we have a Constitution? You're always saying comply. You comply with the Constitution. Comply with the Constitution. Stop rounding people up and stop. And on top of that, stop lying about it. Sit down with the officer and those officers and those people in Minnesota, because if you're there, go sit down and talk to them and listen to their stories. Go sit down with the people who are there, who are being rounded up. Go sit down and talk to the protesters and hear their side of the story, and not just the MAGA faithful or what is it Gregory Bavino is telling you. Just because Barack Obama deported more people than you, it's not a contest, but for you it is, Donald Trump, because you are upset. Barack Obama lives rent-free in your head. So start acting like leaders, like presidents, like people who are over respected, what used to be respected agencies in this country, institutions. And I want you to remember, because I think you've forgotten, that the American people don't work for you. You work for them. You work for us. Our tax money, our hard-earned dollars go towards your salary. And you have the nerve to abuse us and our Constitution and our way of life. and our democracy. Shame on you. If you want to know anything about the Don Lemon Show, here's what you do. You go to donlemon.com and you can click on, if you want to know how to become a member and how to become a subscriber, just hit that watch button right at the top. That'll take you to our YouTube page and you can become a subscriber. It is free, and also become a member. And here's the thing, when you're part of the community, you get special things depending on what your level of membership is. Like, it's not tonight or tomorrow, we'll have a Lemon Legends only, where they get to be on the screen and they get to talk to us at a certain tier of membership. But also you can follow us on Twitch at twitch.tv/Don Lemon. You can follow us on Substack, or you can follow us on any of the socials, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, etc. Threads, all of it. Blue Sky, we're there. Okay. Also, I want to remind you to vote. We were nominated for 4 NAACP Image Awards. And we have figured out, look, we've made it very simple for you, okay? So here's what you do. Very simple for the Don Lemon Show, folks, for the lemon heads out there, okay? Are you ready, Lemon Nation? Are you listening? Here's what you do. So you go to donlemon.com. It's at the top, and it says NAACP Image Awards at the top of the Don Lemon Show page, donlemon.com page. Vote for Don for each category. So you go in category 1, you vote for me, and then you go to category 2 and vote for me, and then you go to category 3 and vote for me, and you go to category 4 and vote for me. And then you hit the 1, so they're all laid out right there. And then you go to 5, you can just click on ours, and you hit submit. We make it very simple for you. Click on the first link, vote, then go click on the second link, vote, then go click on the third link, vote, and then go click on the fourth link, vote, and then the 5th link will secure your vote. It will submit it. Ta-da! We had to simplify it because it's too complicated, all right? So some of the votes that you may have cast earlier may not have been counted because of the whole submit thing that I believe most people don't know and don't see, okay? But make sure you hit that submit button after you vote, and double check to make sure that your vote counts in every single one of those categories, okay? Also, on February 3rd, D.L. Hughley and I will be at City Winery in New York City, February 3rd, and also February 4th as well, for an unbelievable show. There's so much going on. I know you guys want to hear from me and what's in my life, and I know you want to hear from D.L. Hughley. He has just been really outspoken and outstanding on what is happening in the country. So comedian D.L. Hughley, comedian and thought leader, as I call him, D.L. Hughley, and I will be at City Winery. It's the 3rd and 4th. Also, the 17th and 18th, we're going to be in Atlanta. Those are sold out, though. And so if you want to see us, you better get to the New York shows, because and get your tickets fast, because they will sell out too. Our shows always sell out. Okay? So be informed without being inundated. Until I see you back here today at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on the Don Lemon Show and the Don Lemon Channel, I want you again to be informed without being inundated. Everything is going to be all right. Turn the TV off. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss a show. We're live every weekday at 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern Time, with new clips dropping at 2 p. and 8 p. And if you want even more Don Lemon Show content, join the Lemon community. Members get exclusive posts, behind-the-scenes videos, and live chats just for you. So hit the join button or visit our channel page to sign up. Thanks again for all your love and your support, and I'll see you next time.